Get ready.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another great day of the KeSPA Cup 2018. I'm Valdez. With me is Papa Smithy. We're here at the Free Cup Studio, the home of Africa TV themselves, to bring you another match here. It is going to be GC Busan up against KT Rolster, and their first time playing in the KeSPA Cup 2018.
And coming to this new venue also heralds the LCK Big Guns joining the KeSPA Cup as well. KT Rolster, your reigning KeSPA Cup champions and LCK Summer champions, make their debut with their new roster against GC Busan Rising Star, the only challengers team left in the tournament. Kingzone makes their debut against Gen G's LCK Spring champions, and of course 2017 World Champions Gen G will be continuing after going 2-0 up in their last series. And then, of course, tomorrow we get an all-LCK Big Guns affair as Africa TV take on Griffin in their debut. So 4 new teams joining us over the course of 3 best-of-3s.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one for sure. I can't wait to see if GC Busan can continue their run. They have won twice in a row now up against MVP and Jin-Air Green Wings 2-0 both times. Here we are in the Free Cup Studio, of course.
It's a bit different, huh?
Yeah, definitely looks a bit nicer in terms of the view.
There's people here.
You know? Yeah, we got fans as well.
Yeah, fans. Not just behind the camera, but behind us as well. We have live fans here. Of course, at the Actors Arena was a bit of a temporary situation, so couldn't open it up to the crowds. But now the big teams are here. Now the fans are here. They'll continue to filter in. It was sold out very, very quickly. A lot of people messaging me asking for tickets. Unfortunately, all sold out. Hot ticket here is the KeSPA Cup. LCK Spring, still a couple of weeks away, I believe. Announced the 16th of January that kicks off at LoL Park. This will, of course, be the second last venue before we really entrench ourselves. And by ourselves, we mean the LCK in LoL Park. It's going to be Free Cup Studio for these 4 days in a row, finishing on Saturday, and the grand final, a live event at the studio next week. So there's a lot of League of Legends to look forward to, and now we get to understand, where's KT at? Because the only member common of the roster, there's actually only one starting, which already is a bit of a spoiler, and Smeb and Score are the only ones, of course, that are left on the roster, that went to Worlds, that went to quarterfinals, and that are your reigning LCK Summer champions.
Yeah, it's definitely a new look KT Rolster, just like the majority of the teams that we do have in the LCK. As you mentioned, there's really only Griffin and Damwon who have kept all 5 members in their slots and haven't changed anything up. So every time we see a new LCK team come in here to the KeSPA Cup, it really lives up to the name of the KeSPA Cup. It's kind of the preview tournament before we get into the next year. So it's always exciting to watch the new teams, but also to give these Challenger Korea teams a chance to prove what they have and show everybody, hey, we're not meant to be in challengers anymore. We need to go up, and GC Busan changing their roster outside of their mid laner as well, 4 new members, and all of them look impressive so far. We'll see if they can put up a good fight against KT.
And that tradition of challenger versus the LCK teams is one that was started at the beginning. This tournament exists to show off everyone in those semi-professional and truly professional leagues in Korea. And of course, the tradition started with ESC ever being our first ever champions back in 2015. We are 4 years removed of that, and we'll introduce KT, and look at this, Valdez. You do not see Score in the lineup. It is Smeb, BDD, Zenith. preferred to Gango. So Scats, the former Samsung white AD carry that was announced very late, is not even starting in their first map. It will be Zenit, the trainee that had spent some time on the ES Sharks, wasn't even starter in Challenger, played a couple of games on ISG in a promotion tournament. And Mia, the support behind Mata, will be preferred as the starting support to Snowflower. That's definitely a surprise, but the KeSPA Cup, it serves this dual purpose of getting the team stage experience, but also just giving you a chance in a non-Riot tournament, in a non-Worlds implication tournament, to get some reps, to get some time on stage. They're giving time on stage to Mia, and also their new AD carry here, and that's just a really big change from what we would have thought. And of course, as reigning champions, they would want to defend their title at any chance.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool look over on that side. And here for GC Busan Rising Star, it is this lineup that we're slowly, every time they win another game, we become more excited about what they can bring to the table here. They get 6th place in Challengers Korea Summer 2018, but as I said before, only Rem was really on that roster. So totally new roster. You'll notice Soar up in the top side from former Team Battle Comics. Now Sandbox Gaming is up there. Also Moo making a huge name for himself down in the bottom side, especially with that Ezreal play. Definitely one of the MVPs of this lineup.
I mean, one of the big MVPs for me is just this whole organization together. GC Busan have been the surprise packet. They come in with so much stage experience relative to their opponents in KT Rolster, and look, it could quickly devolve into, well, they're the LCK Summer Champions, the biggest Korean hope at Worlds, that is going to outskill the members of GC Busan. That could happen, but I'm not necessarily betting on that as 100% certainty with how good GC Busan have looked in this tournament. And even in lanes, like you think Soar versus Smeb, 4 years ago, this is almost a joke matchup because Soar was struggling heavily on Sonic Boom, and Smeb was at the start of his ascent as the best top laner in the world. But that's 4 years ago. We're here now, and LCK versus Challengers Korea over the course of this tournament has been surprisingly competitive overall.
Yeah, you'll notice that the Challenger Korea side has taken a couple of games here, one of them being GC Busan over Jin Air. I suppose the other might have been when Hanwha Life did go down in the early stages of the tournament. But also, as you will see down at the bottom, Zenit is making his debut here on KT Rolster. KT Rolster also the champions of the 2017 KeSPA Cup. Zenit comes in here onto this new squad, has to have his debut, and can he actually stand up to that really strong bottom lane, which is looking favored towards GC Busan right now. It's definitely an interesting lane to look at for this matchup.
KT Rolster, at the end of the day, have a really big fan base, and their bot lane was one of their standbys. They had Deft and Mata, arguably top 3 in their role all time for both those players. Now we have players with so little professional experience, no professional games between Zenit or Mia, who sat behind Mata and watched on as one of the best supports of all time, strode his thing over the course of 2018. So while he would have been in the hot seat and watched on with Mata, now it's so different. Now he is under the lights with the crowd out here, and amusingly, his opposing bot lane has more professional experience than he and his AD carry do.
It's a weird feeling, but I love when weird feelings come to League of Legends. It just creates fun games and fun times for all. We're going to jump into pick ban for game number 1. KT on the blue side. Going to start with the Rise ban here.
Remember, guys, Xin Zhao and Nico are globally banned. That is the important information you guys need to know. Then zooming into this one, and you know, you could have just added Cassiopeia there, and it wouldn't have changed anything rather than the strength of red side and blue side. No Cassio after the first couple of days of the tournament, understanding the power level there. We have our sheets in front of us, some stats put together by Africa TV and KeSPA, and the surprising one to join the Cassiopeia at 100% pick ban rate is the Camille. We already mentioned it, the game's getting faster, we're getting LPL style. Camille was that #1 jungler in China, but not in Korea. We moved to Korea, and now the Camille joins the Cassio at 100% contested, and does make you feel like more often than not, on the red side, you only get 1 ban.
Brings me back to other springs of LCK, and with Galio kind of going up in pressure in the mid lane as well. He comes out here as a ban, and there you go. Lucian going to be first picked here for Zenit in the bottom side. Interesting one for KT.
It's a tier list choice. It means that Zenit will have a pick that's very hard to beat in lane. Maybe you can take Caitlyn, but even that can be stuffed by a jungle gank or the support difference. So I don't mind the Lucian. It's a very, very common first pick. I would have called it out as a profit, but it's not a profit kind of thing anymore. The Galio reliability and the fact that it's BDD's Galio. You know, the word about KT is that they've been struggling a bit behind the scenes trying to integrate all the new pieces together, which shouldn't be a big surprise, but it doesn't take a person watching scrims to know that BDD has still been informed. This guy is still a monster. When Kingzone fell apart in summer season, everybody was still talking about how BDD was still one of the very best mid laners in the world, and he's going to have to contend with a potential Aurelia flex into the mid lane and Kha'Zix's pressure, because BDD is the man you want to keep under wraps, whatever team he's on in 2018.
Yeah, it's going to be up to Rem to shut him down alongside Ryan in the jungle on the Kha'Zix. He's 3-0, 11 KDA. Of course, that is up against MVP and Jin Air. Now this is going to be a much harder matchup, but definitely his most comfortable jungle we've seen so far. BDD going to go along the lines of Faker here. Just pick up the Lissandra. It's super safe, especially into Irelia. Whatever lane it goes to, you can flex it there as well if need be. And it's just a good pick right now. So thinking also about the Thresh here, and they will lock that in.
KT locks in Thresh. You look down the bottom left. You don't see Mata there. You feel a bit sad. He has a couple of common letters, the M and the A. So if you autofill it, you see Mata. But it's going to be Mia. And we'll see how his Thresh looks. Of course, it is considered as that very strong lane. The wife-steal duo of Lucian and Thresh will be put together. So definitely laning power, just like the Draven Thresh we saw yesterday, is going to be fun to track. Doesn't seem like GC Busan are interested in a first round AD carry, so chances of Draven suddenly do go up a little bit. Mu has been known for his Ezreal, so that's why he saw a first round ban on it, but honestly he's been competitive on everything he's put out there. Ezreal Civolution is his champion pool. I wonder if he eats a Sivir ban, because Sivir can just kind of push in the Ezreal at certain parts with the Q-Buster come in over time for that Sivir. And the Fiora takes a ban here. You might wonder, why is that? It's because we've seen a lot of Fiora mid lane in solo queue in Korea against Aurelia. Doesn't matter where the Aurelia goes. You talked about Lissandra tracking her. The problem with Lissandra is eventually you can just repose to get a QSS and actually kill the Lissandra in a long lane when you hit the side lanes in the late game. Fiora is always happy to take on Aurelia in every lane. And given that we have Smeb and BDD on the lineup, two players who are definitely happy to opt into some aggressive picks, it ends up being a Fiora ban and a Jax ban towards Smeb as a potential secondary answer into Aurelia.
Yeah, we talked about how the Zoe gets picked into the Lissandra very often, so it was a kind of a backstab move from GC Busan in the pick ban where they kind of bait out the Lissandra. It was a very, easily predicted pick, and then they go ahead and counter it in the mid lane there with the Zoe. Could do the flexing like you were mentioning before, but we'll have to wait and see exactly where the lanes are going to go. How about an AD carry here for Mu? He's going to be hovering this KeSPA right now.
Definitely a bold pick when something like Caitlyn is still on the board. It's something that's a little more risky to pull off in the lane. The laning power isn't there. But if you look at what KT have done, they power picked Lucian and Thresh. They've double banned support. And if this was old KT, you'd say, winning through bot lane. Because it's two rookie players, we don't actually know if it's winning through bot lane or we need this to be able to get through the laning phase. And Mu and Minute, if you've been actually watching GC Busan games in the KeSPA Cup, have actually looked very impressive. Largely out of lane, but even in lane, they've been super competitive. So given all of that, we can only look at what's locked in. And Umti's debut, jumping over from Jin Air Green Wings. Will it be a King T game? Because he's jumping onto the Lee Sin here. That is a champion that KT Rolster in their previous iteration could never play, because Score's Lee Sin is tiers below all the other picks that he grabs with two hands and hard carries on. So they finally have a Lee Sin specialist to join someone like Rush, who was their previous Lee Sin specialist when he was on the roster. Rush jumps over to NA, to many of our global fans' delight. We're still going to see a Lee Sin. It's going to be Umti, and the Alistar will round things out for GC Busan.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about how KT may be struggling a little bit in scrims, trying to get things on the same page for all the different players that are playing, but for all we know, maybe Zenit and me are actually the bottom lane that's doing better compared to Gango and Snowflower, and that's why they come out here. It might not just be, KeSPA Cup this, KeSPA Cup that, or whatever. Could just be Zenit is a fantastic bottom lane player they've picked up, and now he's got the chance to play.
And it's a struggle of when you play with a lineup that's just debuting in a tournament that's not for Worlds implications. The whys, the what-ifs are all conditional. We cannot know what the plans are without a coach interview, and even then, do you want to give all your dirty laundry or confirm all the good things that are happening that is so much more tricky to do. No coaches interviews today, guys. We're going straight into the games, which I'm sure everyone at home is happy to hear. We will only know in hindsight what this all means for KT Rolster, but because they come in reigning LCK champions, reigning KeSPA Cup champions, they are the teams we need to know much more about. We need more data points about where KT is as a squad, and we're going to get the first one very shortly.
Well, it's exciting if you're a KT fan. I know a bunch of your players have gone off to other teams and stuff like that, but Umti in between BDD and Smeb, especially for me, when Umti is on the Lee Sin, if he has a King T game, if he has one of those games where he actually pops off, that can be pretty insane, and you can get your top side of the map going so well in that fact. Guys, we're ready to jump into game number one. All the fans have come down here already. Let's start it right now. KT up against GC Busan. Ah, yes. Those good feels when the fans are back in the studio and cheering for their teams. Feels like old times, Papa.
And definitely does add a different psychological element. Even though we've seen 4 competitive games, 4 victories for GC Busan, that wasn't with the fans there. And any player who's played in front of an audience, anyone who's given a speech in front of their school knows you get those butterflies. You do things a little bit differently. So we'll wait to see if GC Busan can keep things together against a super famous organization right up there with SKT. Is KT Rolster as one of those mainstays of the 20-year or so history of Korean esports. It goes before League of Legends, and Umti jumping on this squad is something we should talk about because we've seen his old good buddy Teddy jump over from Jin Air to SKT and just maintain that high level of expectation about his performance. Umti, a lot more up and down, but we saw a lot of the good of what was a very emotional young jungler who was very mechanically gifted. There was that variable of he was on Jin Air, and Jin Air has perennially struggled. He's on KT now. He has some of the big names of the game. His solo lanes, Smeb and BDD. You cannot ask for better solo lanes. So how does Umti level up? Or does he actually struggle now that he's in a very different scenario?
Yeah, I mean, that was basically the gist of what I was talking about. It's such a good feeling, and it looks like maybe he's going to head down to the bottom side here, clearing out a ward already, maybe just trying to get over to the crab here, and we'll hop onto that now.
But it's very, very telegraphed. When you see a support start sweeper and sweep the ward, and you know they came into lane late after taking, ostensibly giving a leash on the bot side, it's all pretty transparent, and we all know now from solo queue meta that you have your top laner, your mid laner, maybe even your AD carry ward both the sides. There's a spot for the scuttle, so they still have plenty of information about Lee Sin. Any sort of cheese gank there, it's just too expected at the pro level.
It was fun to see Smeb up in the top side also just being really annoying at level 1 to soar, just saying you can't even get close enough to the minions for XP unless you take a bad trade in my favor. He has caught up. It's very even right now the way it's looking, and maybe even Soar can get ahead if he catches all those minions underneath the turret, but we'll have to wait and see.
Skill expression quotient is really going to be expressed more on the side of the Aurelia than the Urgot. We all know the Urgot kind of does what it says on the book. It's very, very simple in terms of how he plays out over the laning phase, and then his ult is that pass-fail, right, of are they in the range or not. Whereas Soar, who we came in expecting to be very much the tank player, had that big Rise performance just a couple of days ago. You and I cast that and was the super hard carry of that series victory when they upset a second LCK opponent in a row. So given all of that, their impressive victory over, I believe Jin Air it was at the time, how will he fare against Smeb? We're definitely leveling up in terms of LCK opposition. Went from the former LCK team and MVP, jump up over to Jin Air. Now it's KT Rolster and Smeb, one of the best top laners of all time. We'll see if he can bring back the heroics, because we already said that he had that free agent status, even though he's on GC Busan for this tournament. The price is going up every time we see Soar play, and it's been a pleasure to watch him really blossom after 3 years in the wilderness since his last LCK performance.
Yeah, I'd say he'd have to live up to that performance that we saw the other day on the Rise, and up against a much better player. He's got his, he has his goal right in front of him, what he exactly has to do here. It's not going to be easy, but he does have to show up for this team. I'm going to be interested to also track Ryan here on the side of GC Busan. Can he have another really impressive performance on his comfortable Kha'Zix up against a much stronger lineup?
And it's that second part that is so important. He's played 3 games of Kha'Zix. They've won all their games, so it's 3 victories. 11 KDA on the Kha'Zix.
Yeah.
This guy has been just the biggest monster on the Insect from the jungle. He was our first legendary player. He was our first 1,000 gold bounty in professional play because they played in that first series on patch 824B. So right now it's just the farming phase. If you look at the lanes, it's not an easy time to gank any of these lanes, so I think the level 6 main line is just fine. But that does give his own counter level 6, and usually it's a bit more impactful for a Lee Sin than a Kha'Zix outside of some really interesting pathing choices. Let's see if Ryan can get it going. Every Kha'Zix player has not gone for Electrocute. They stick with the Dark Harvest in spite of all the nerfs Dark Harvest has taken in previous patches.
I like that Ryan took the time out of his schedule to just go in and make sure they have tabs on exactly where Lee Sin and where MT is going to be, placing that ward at the Krugs, puts down a control ward near the dragon too, because we all know how popular these early dragons have also become, and the Ocean Drake, definitely the best one for the early game. We'll see where MT decides to go, if he even wants to go in to the Ocean Drake or when that Drake will be taken.
Well, KT have in their solo lanes, or for their carries, I'm talking about Urgot, Lissandra, and Lucian, probably strongest in every role, outside of maybe Lissandra being beaten in some laning trades, as we saw from the Orianna yesterday. So it feels very much win lane, win game pick comp from the side of KT Rolster, whereas GC Busan, they get going with the Zoe. We know about the skirmish options there. Siege as well, as Umti and Smeb say, well, no, that's my Rift Scuttle on the top side.
That's the third one, too. We don't have the counter here, but MT did go Scuttle to Raptors and then over to the other Scuttle, and Ryan just said, that's okay. I don't want to trade against Elise in the jungle anyway. I'm just going to clear my entire jungle and then head over, go for a back and then maybe start a fight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to pick that one up, but just good team presence there and communication from KT.
And while KT will feel so strong about their fights in the first 20 minutes, again, because of the power laden into the early game and all these solo lanes, I think for GC Busan, it's still pretty happy with stability because there's always the and then quotient that really works for them. If they can get a Baron buff, if they get some Mountain Drakes, even if they can set up some control wards on the flanks, their siege with the Zoe can be very, very oppressive. And a 4-1 where Zoe's raining hell with Paddle Stars and Aurelia has an item lead or even parity at level 16, I think GC Busan win that scenario pretty comfortably if their shot calling is good. And so far their shot calling has been very, very impressive for a new lineup in the KeSPA Cup. GC Busan have only one remaining member in their mid laner Rem from the Challengers team that honestly kind of didn't impress too much in Challengers Summer 2018. So this new lineup has continued to evolve at the top level, and Aurelia in the side lane, Zoe sieging, Zenit super low in bot lane just to stop that story.
Well, nice block there by Mia on the backside, but again, we said it at the beginning. We table set for the bottom lane. We knew that was going to be favored towards Moo and Minute, or at least we thought it would be because we didn't know what to expect from Zenit. So far, able to get a good trade down there means that Ryan will have help if he needs it at the Drake, and a good start already. Not going to pick up the checkpoint. Oh, looks like they just barely got it there towards the end.
Umti's top side looking for the turret dive on Sorrow. Let's wait for the W here, but we're bringing in 3, so this one seems likely.
Okay, well, he is going to be in position there. The Q comes in and easily going to put down the Fear Beyond Death. First Blood goes on over. Looking for the snipe there was Ram. But a nice 3-man gank on the top side nets them the First Blood.
But look at the timer here. The timer is not irrelevant. It's all about taking the answering objective on the top, not just relying on a kill. And they don't get a summoner from Soar. They don't get the Rift Herald because it doesn't spawn for 2 minutes. So actually the timings here overall, I think, work out for GC Busan. The Ocean Drake for laning for the Zoe especially is going to be pretty damn happy. And if you, again, go back to our expectations of, well, they've got Lucian Thresh and they double ban support. This should be an easy laning 2v2 win for KT. Just being able to out-trade this duo and take an objective on the bottom side is a surprise based on the overall draft and how we outlined where the power lied in the early games. So overall, GC Busan never feels good to give up First Blood, but I think they actually got enough in advance or an answer to make it okay.
Just a side point about the patch that we have now. I know checkpoints have been around for quite a while, but it's cool to see the aggressive kind of gank pattern that KT goes into in the top side, and then right before they get the kill, they also all pick up a bunch of gold from the checkpoint. It's hard to get those checkpoints if you're 1 versus 1 and you're not really pushing, but if you can set up a gank into some extra checkpoints, that's just some extra gold that you can put into your pockets and really makes you want to go for that kind of gank.
If you guys are wondering why we use the word checkpoint over something like plating, I know it's called turret plating in the game. I feel like that word is kind of a little bit tricky to understand if you didn't read all the patch notes, so we'll probably interchangeably use both, but basically every time a plate goes down, it's kind of like a turret checkpoint is hit. You hear the big ding that lets you know you've done something good and the gold comes in as well. Speaking of gold,
MG could be in a bit of trouble here, actually. Gets the smite on the Raptor, too. Ryan couldn't even steal that one away. He's totally fine on the backside. And Protobelt just picked up here for Lissandra. Also has that stopwatch. Could go for a play here onto Zoe.
And now the vision top side for KT, the vision bot side for GC Busan. The control ward line tells you a lot about that. GC Busan continue to push up there. 15 CS lead, 2v2, so you call it kind of an organic lead here for the KeSPA lane is unexpected, but a really good sign for the GC Busan duo. We have no insight into why Zenit and Mia are starting over what we expected to be the starting duo of Gango and Snowflower. And same story with Umti in the jungle. So KT definitely trying things in game number 1, and not to any great detriment. The game is even, but you have to note the things where they happen. And right now, bot lane and Moo potentially in the late game is certainly a possibility. But maybe Moo right now needs to be discussed, as Moo is actually moving himself on the KeSPA, the top side, and ending this laning phase on the Urgot.
That is going to be the case. Umti, though, is in the bottom side way before Ryan can even get the push up in the top side. They're going to get a couple of plates off of this bottom turret. Looks like on the next push that should come through. But Ryan, in this moment, they have so much pressure in the top side. I like this kind of swap because you have pressure in the top side. You can get the Rift Herald and try to snowball that into even more.
And the snowball is being very clearly labeled. Sora says, screw this bot lane, I want to kill Smeb.
Yeah, can they land the stun? Looks like they will. Is there enough damage? Exhaust onto the KeSPA, but it's going to be more than enough. Sora will get out alive as well. And take a look at this. Ryan picks up that Rift Herald.
And that is another trade up by GC Busan. That's a kill. They will eventually get the turret as well. There's no defense being put down by Lissandra. Ooh. And how about doing it fast? It's pre-14 minutes. They're going to get a big explosion of gold and also stop this from being a tempo lead from KT. So they're kind of getting their lunch and eating it too and getting to talk about it, write a Yelp review, so they did pretty well. Everything's coming together for GC Busan on the top side, and that's 2 out trades on KT in our estimation.
Definitely a good feel. I was surprised that they actually used it up in the top side. I thought maybe just try to continue with that push and then go, but I suppose they want to be ready for the next Drake, and it's hard to push into Lissandra in the mid lane anyway. They end up getting this second charge here on the top side as well, so not half bad for them. Got to be feeling pretty good. We saw a funny trade in the mid lane too, Zoe picking up double proto belts. If that looked weird to anyone, definitely is a bit weird, but that's what Zoe is.
So let's go back and kind of really understand why this trade was made for GC Busan, the first lane swap there. On the simple level, it's, oh, we get the Rift Herald and there's no Drake on the bottom side, it's a good time to trade. It's actually more than that. The other thing they did get, outside of just the kill under turret, is that Sora was close to an item timing. And remember that one of the reasons lane swaps came up in League of Legends was to hide bad matchups in the 1v1. Getting the Aurelia some more items before she actually has to lane against Urgot, get her a Trinity Force and then some, is actually another benefit to the lane swap that happened. They dodged the matchup until Aurelia hits more item timings, and we know that Aurelia takes off and never really stops in the air the moment she picks up that Trinity Force. So the longer they don't have that 1v1, things are just fine for GC Busan, and they're going to continue to push.
It's so cool. I mean, this time they get the rotation going first, so they're even going to get the turret down on the bottom side first, plus another objective. And Smeb is trying to make something of it in the mid lane, trying to catch up here, but it's against Zoe, who can clear relatively fast. Meanwhile, there's nobody down on the bottom side, so some kind of weird mini base race is happening as they're continuing the push down here.
This early game macro reminds me, of the analogy I can give is one team's fishing with fishing rods, the other one's using their hands, and KT Rolster are not being able to match at all. The tempo advantage here for GC Busan is insane. It's so obvious.
It's even if you don't really know macro or anything about the game, you can tell that the red team is doing things right and the blue team is struggling to catch up.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to end the game, but if you're the coach of KT sitting in the back right now, you're ripping out your hair, you're saying, you're making notes every couple of seconds, like making a new note with a new VOD timestamp. Whatever this game goes, things for KT to work on in terms of early game macro, and another good showing from GC Busan.
It's definitely what we wanted to see. You know, the last challenger team left over, they've already impressed against weaker teams. This is kind of unfortunate for Rem, but at least the sleep gets down, but flashing away. looking for that kick. Not quite going to be enough. Missing the hook there is Mia, and the follow-up here. Ryan not able to get in position to take out That's definitely a bit of a mechanical mistake. And here is the Aurelia. Nice kick, though. A fantastic reaction time out of but the three-man knockup from the Alistair. Can they get a kill? Smith, though, is going on in. GC Busan, they've gone way too far forward, it looks like, as Minute continuing that fight, and Moo wasn't even here.
That was the epitome of an almost team fight. So many blinking health bars, so many stopwatches used. Only one member goes down, and it's Soar, who thinks he has the kill, but the kick is still available. That's the interaction there. Because the stasis interrupted the cast of the Dragon's Rage kick, it's still available on the end of this. Rem plays this fight perfectly when it comes to running away, and also using the stasis on the kick. Mia has that little mistake there. Definitely not Mana-esque on that Thresh death sentence. But at the tail end here, has his wits around him. Remember, Soar's on a control ward and is able to outplay the Flash Vanguard's edge, and Soar the only one to go down.
Yeah, I mean, they just tried to jump on Mia, VDD, and Zenit. Zenit nearly goes down, but Mia had a stopwatch, and he was the main source of all that damage, so they were able to sustain up against Zoe, Alistair, and the Irelia. It was enough time to buy them the win in the fight, so kind of clears up some of those smudges we saw earlier on in the game from the side of KT, as this is a very even game outside of the Drakes that have been taken by GC Busan.
It definitely feels like the scuffed macro from KT compared to GC Busan making some nice trade-ups. The only real separator as of 16 minutes, and there's no way that we can rule out masterclass team fighting from KT turning this game around. Just want to point out the things so the viewers at home can understand that there is a lot of agency for proactive macro and snowballing in the early game, as the meta is a fast meta, and so your fast decisions, turns out, when you remove so many games of competitive experience, we know that Mata would have had a big hand in shot calling their score as well. It's going to be a big talker in the early games, given how the jungle role works. You bring in a different set, and while we shouldn't be surprised that things can fall apart a little bit for KT, still need to note the things that could be worked on.
Well, no big objectives right now as both teams kind of posturing. You saw GC Busan looking for an opportunity mid, whereas KT rotating up towards the top side, but decent coverage there to keep Soar safe. He's not going to get ganked even if he doesn't have his flash. Question is, where is the next target here for GC Busan? They were looking maybe at the Lucian in the mid lane. Will they go for that, or no, it looks like Minute goes for a back. So we'll need to wait until we have our next play here.
Seems like the jungle solo queue brains trust of and Malrung have come together. Seeing lethality, Lee Sin, coming here from Now, remember, Malrung went lethality when he was really the person with all the kills. He had the first 4 kills for his team for Jin Air in that game against GC Busan, and then awkwardly died a couple of times as he was sitting on the precipice of finishing the lethality item. He's going for it again here. The theory behind it is, how does this KT Rolster comp work? What did we talk about before, and what does the meta look like? Well, we're a good pick comp. Let's delete one person and take an objective. A Baron around 20 minutes off spawn would be ideal. So the lethality item is done, as we're going to have a battle for the Drake very, very soon. And that means the KT, while they're brittle, damn, do they kill one person almost instantly.
I mean, it's 3 out of 5 members. That's 60% of the members that you're going to be basically one-shotting if you have any help right now. We do have the chase on Smeb, but that's a fast crab trying to get on top of Umti. There was Ryan, nearly takes him out, forces that kick away, but meanwhile, KT using this moment to push the mid lane.
KT make the proactive call to go through mid lane with the minions. GC Busan were thinking about Drake, but aren't going to start it. And also lose some damage on the mid lane tower. Won't lose it completely, but nice little call there from KT. Now, though, can KT find a formation to contest this Drake? It's a Kha'Zix with Q evolve, so we know that he does it very speedily.
Just going to be taking it here. Smeb not able to do anything by himself, of course, there, and the rest of the team kind of just hanging around mid, continuing to push. Not able to take out the turret, so second Cloud Drake to the side of GC Busan. They're pretty fast.
And now we ask the question, what are KT doing? And that question is answered by, well, they are in great position around the Baron at 20 minutes. Their Baron speed's not super fantastic, but it's very decent, and they could have double smite. With Smeb switching over on the Unsealed Spellbook, they also have a lot of control topside and can kite that way when they're looking to finally kill off this mid lane turret. So KT, they're very much about a future objective, but it's a game breaker if they can get that Baron. And the mid lane turret is one of the best ways to do so.
Looking for a play, but Minute is shut down by the flame from the top side. There's that Lee Sin damage, but pulled from miles away as Smeb brings him to his death. That's going to be a third kill, too, onto Ryan, who just got in harm's way. They're not going to push. They're going for Baron.
Exactly. It's 20 minutes and everything comes together as Smeb snipes down a further kill here. They run to the Baron. They know that GC Busan were never in position for this. They don't have a control for it, but it doesn't even matter.
Look at all the vision here. Soar and Moo alone. Will try, it looks like. They're going to send out some dealers here and see what they can do. Soar still full health with an ultimate. Could try to get on in here. Missed hook. It's just really that Urgot that's hard to get past. But MT getting low. They want to turn. They're going to take out one. Soar is also going to go down. Can't go 1v4. MT keeps the Baron least. Here's Minute, though.
They want to rush it down as fast as possible. They don't know how far Kha'Zix is. We know just now going to be shown on a KT ward. They don't have complete control. They have to back away. But KT Rolster basically get an extended ace on the members of GC Busan. And it all comes back to this moment. Under turret, Minute walks up. He's going to eventually go down. But watch on the back end there. Almost the entire cast length of that Urgot ult. We've seen people miss it at 100 range. 7 chemos later. Smeb still able to snipe away. Nice to see the return on one of the best top laners in the world. And that moment may undo all of the good work from GC Busan in the first 15 minutes.
One moment of messy play can mean the game just going heavily against you. That could be the difference between an LCK team and a challenger team. Could be the difference between top LCK, mid LCK, and could be the difference in this game too, as now KT is about 2,500 gold ahead. Weren't able to get the Baron, of course. You were mentioning that kind of somewhat mediocre Baron speed, and of course they were just looking for some extra kills on the backside. Successfully baited in Moo and Soar. They should be happy now. Some item timings coming in. A Black Cleaver here for the Lucian 203. Also, BDD picking up his Zhonya's means that the next fight going to be even more KT favored.
We're definitely in a meta now that we've reached 2019 almost. We're almost 10 years in. The pro game's about 8 years in. Where jungle steals are something that's happening a lot less. Is when we see the follow here, we will.
Oh boy, look at that damage. MT, no way. He's going to get that kill. Moo gets sniped once again by Smeb. He's going to take him out from miles away. That's going to be a second one there for Smeb, and the second try at Baron.
Notice the only way we had wins on Urgot was if Khan on SKT was playing it. Smeb joins the tournament, and apparently his ult is a targeted ability. Gets another kill, this time on the enemy AD carry who dies with his summoners up. And this time the Baron should be more reliable, even though it's annoying to deal with the Zoe.
Can he snipe it here is the real question. Doesn't have anything. There's a lot of people blocking in the face of him as well. And as you mentioned, just an annoyance. Smite comes in at around 400, but it's good enough to take out that Baron.
When Umti hit the first part of the Q, you assume no Lee Syndrome, he's going to back away, but BDD is the ultra name on this lineup. He is the superstar, and he says, we're fighting now. Definitely a far cry from Showmaker, who couldn't make those decisive engages before. Smeb does the rest when we see the Zoe at the back of the pit. Who's there to block it? But Smeb and BDD. This team will largely have their fortunes decided by their solo laners because their solo laners are so embarrassingly talented. They both play super well. BDD can initiate the Snipe Faker, and that's some damage.
Look at his items, guys. Just 3 items, 2 lethality. I mean, he's going to get on top of that guy. Or at least he's got the Duskblade here. It's enough to one-shot one guy, and I mentioned it before. If he finds 3 out of 5 members, can just one-combo them.
Let's see the replay. Let's understand lethality, Lee Sin.
Barely
Again,
even saw him
he even
there.
has that extra item. But, he didn't even use
He didn't
any
have full
autos.
vision of him.
Nope.
He just calculated it. Here we go again. That's a really fed Lee Sin alongside BDD. Not much that GC Busan can do now. They're just getting rolled over.
Let me tell you a calculation. If X plus Y equals SMEB, BDD, or UMTI, you die. If there's two of those three, you are getting killed in one rotation, and it's so reliable. With the damage they can put out, Rem trying to wave clear under turret here, but KT styling on GC Busan, and that is something that is significant given that GC Busan come in 4-0, and an impressive 4-0 in the KeSPA Cup so far.
We were waiting to see what was the reason that UMTI was coming in here instead of Score. He's had a fantastic game so far on the Lee Sin, 6-0-5. I feel like he's earned himself a second game here, although the fans might be mad if Score doesn't come out today. It'll definitely be a question as we head into game 2.
You know, I've been a big fan of his play for a long time, but I'm sure the global fans saw so many lean performances next to a handful of good ones. Part of that was Jinair, but he has a good mindset about the game. He's a great solo queue player, and now he's on a great team, and that means the best of UMTI is still to come.
Game is falling apart from here. Minute not able to do anything. The Fear Beyond gets into the back line too. Takes out Kha'Zix. Nobody on KT will die in the fight. They're looking for more here too. Gonna take out 4. Can they get the 5th? UMTI, no! He's almost gonna go down, but he stays alive on the backside. There's the ace. And there's KT Rolster winning game 1 in 25 minutes.
Welcome KT Rolster, still some issues, but 25-25 later, there is only one team that can come through this game. A lot of new members, but an old feel of KT Rolster. The meta seemed like it suited it, but is it the KT Rolster lineup that really makes KT Rolster? Based on this first game, the answer is no. Some great proactive shot calling around fights, overcomes some early game mistakes when it comes to macro. Still things to work on, but the best of KT seems like it's going to be competitive against anyone in the world.
The top 3 players, top jungle and mid, might just be able to carry this team really hard. We saw that down on the bottom side. Zenit and Mia not quite able to keep up with Moo and Minute, but just didn't matter in the end. UMTI nearly going legendary there towards the end. Not sure, he might have picked up the 2 kills actually in the last fight and actually did go legendary, but fantastic game. Looks like he's really happy with this new org.
Understandable there. He's on KT now. The Jinair glad playing, sad playing meme is removed from UMTI in 2019. BDD, turns out he's still a god in the mid lane, so great to see him back on the Rift. See if GC Busan can pick themselves up from the loss for the first time so far in the KeSPA Cup. And for KT, do we see a roster change or do we not? Because the bot lane certainly had a lot of struggles in a winning 2v2 matchup. Is that just nerves of playing in front of a crowd for the first time, playing a first pro game, or is that a reality of the players who are very unheralded in their role? Of course, it is such a disparate map. You have 3 of the best of the top side of scorers lining up, or if UMTI continues this form, and 2 newer players. We'll see what KT makes of that roster decision for game number 2.
Well, guys, it looks like we're ready to head to a commercial break. When we come back, we'll get to game number 2 at KT versus GC Busan. Don't go anywhere.